do have one thing to ask you. If I forget you, please befriend me again.
Greetings and good evening to those who have been waiting for so long. Welcome to another episode of Geek News Marathon Night, the first one of 2022. And I am, of course, your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drak. I hope everybody's had an awesome holiday season. And joining me today is my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, fine.
Fine, after she's just barely recovering from the last shift of the holiday season for you.
Yeah.
And then things start kind of mellowing out. Whereas for me, it kind of goes on until mid-January because of returns. So that'll be fun. But it's our first time back, Andrea. Honestly, did you miss it?
Did I miss?
Did you miss recording Geek News Marathon Night?
Well, I haven't had a chance to think about that.
No, nobody really has, have they?
Been too busy with work. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So, in case you don't remember, Andrea, because the last time we did this was way back in, I want to say November, when we did our final episode kind of summing up Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And if you guys have not listened to that playlist, enough people have talked me out of it. I'm going to keep the Marathon Night playlists up on the YouTube channel so you guys can have that too. But I'm also going to strongly encourage you, go to the RSS feed and support us there, because that's how we know if you want more. Mm-hmm. I'm not watching YouTube because Mama Susan don't care. But at that point, we did announce that we had 2 series in the works for 2022. We were going to be starting things up with Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1. But we were also going to be taking on Fruits Basket Season 3. For those who are confused about what we're talking about the 2019 reboot of Fruits Basket, the one that actually is going to follow the manga. Unlike the 2001 series, which got, basically 22, 23 episodes and only went so far. So at that point, before we get into Season 3, because we're going to do an episode-by-episode review of that, we already have 2 seasons that have happened, and I figure we probably better give you our opinions on that. And so we're going to do it in this summarized form, at least for right now, but it does open things up if later on we want to do a review of Season 1 and 2 as well, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, but obviously we've got to get to that. So tonight we are taking on the first 24 episodes of the first season of Fruits Basket, or sorry, 25, because they sneak peeked what Season 2 was going to start off with. So at that point, I think we should just get right into it, shall we?
Yep.
So first of all, episode 1 is I'm Going. This is kind of the introduction episode that both series kind of got right. So just to kind of give a quick summation, we meet Toru Honda, who is a high school girl who is living in the middle of nowhere in a tent. Not sure why, but she is. And even though there's a nearby house, she doesn't go and live there. And we find out that part of the reason is because her grandpa is having, I think it was his house was being renovated. And so she decided to not be a bother. This is going to be a common character trait for Toru. Is she didn't want to be a bother, so she decided she was going to go live in a tent in the woods.
Well, she was a outdoor girl.
In the middle of the winter season, might I add, because they, if you guys follow like slice of life stuff and all that, they're technically in winter outfits in this season. So it's just like, wow. She did what I don't think you would ever do, Andrea. She is going to go live in the middle of the woods in a tent at wintertime. Any awards you want to already dig out for Miss Honda?
No.
Okay. Before we go any further into this series, I also did want to answer this question. I get this a lot. It's not necessarily for Andrea, but it is for me, because Andrea's already said she's a fan of Fruits Basket. And so at that point, doing this rebooted series, I think made sense. Unfortunately, I have a bit of a history with knocking slice of life anime, which technically this is. And so for all of the people who are going to get mad at me for that, there are a few exceptions that I will have. And one of the exceptions is Fruits Basket. And it's primarily because with a lot of slice of life anime, going to school is kind of a primary trope of it. And school activities and things like that are always kind of active in it. And this is no exception, but I actually feel it's more the exception than the rule. Because, yeah, school is going to play into some of the plots of these episodes, but a lot of the stuff that makes up this series, the meat of this series, is outside of school. It's what the characters are dealing with at that given moment. So I kind of give it a pass, because if there was too much school in it, I probably wouldn't be a fan at all. Andrea knows this. I hate school.
Mhm.
And so, like, anything that has kind of a school premise, I immediately just go, hell no. I just don't want to deal with it. They'll give you that look. School's horrible. So that being said, I'm also kind of addressing that really quick. That's why we're doing this, because I actually do like this series. And I watched the original one at you and Alex's request, and I liked it. Partially because it's kind of good therapy in a weird way. And so when they announced a reboot, obviously, like, I was excited, primarily because I was hoping they would fix the mistakes of the previous series. So again, Toru Honda is living in the woods in a tent in wintertime. And when she's walking to school one day, she meets up with a kindly man by the name of Shigure Soma. Now, anime snobs, really quick. Andrea might say these names incorrect. To any of you that put in the comments that she's saying it correct, be prepared to get the following Dragon Ball Z abridged quote. Because that's, like, anime snobs, you're not going to win. She's not going to say it right, okay? So get off her back on that one. But we meet Shigure Soma. And I believe it starts off the same way as the other series, where he's tending to his little art design of the Zodiac animals all in a nice little set. So she kind of compliments it and says that she's always been a fan of the cat from the old story that she used to be told from her mom, which is as follows. One day, all of the animals of the Chinese Zodiac got together for a feast, and long story short, the cat was left out of that because the rat decided to trick him, and he instead went with the cow, or riding the back of the cow, to go to this festival, and so the cat is left out. All right, so that's kind of a rough understanding of that story, and that might not seem like too much, but it actually will play into the story of this series. While talking with Shigure, she then finds out that her fellow classmate and prince of her class, Yuki Soma, lives with Shigure. And so they decide to walk to school together, and we find out that he's such a gentlemanly guy, isn't he? He's just this gentlemanly guy. It almost makes you wonder if there are any skeletons in the closet. Did you ever get that vibe meeting Yuki for the first time?
No, I just thought he was just some.
Oh, I always got that vibe. Like, whenever somebody's too kind in an anime, you know they've got some secret weird fetish. That's just the way anime goes. So this is where we kind of get introduced to a bunch of characters, most from her classroom. First of all, we meet Arisa Uotani, who and Saki Hanajima. These are Toru's best friends. They are her girlfriends. All right. And I apologize, but I'm still recovering from a freaking cold. So if I cough every now and again, you're going to have to forgive me. Arisa and Saki are longtime friends. I don't want to say childhood friends because they haven't known each other for their entire childhood, but they are very, very good friends of Toru. In fact, you could actually dare say that they are her lesbian moms. In a weird... Am I wrong in that? Like, they have literally taken on the motherly role in her life because they literally are like the doddering moms of who's approved to talk to, who isn't, all that.
Makes sense.
I mean, Arisa, not so much, but Saki's definitely that. And for those who don't know who I'm talking about, Uotani is the punk girl of this, so she likes getting in fights. And Hanajima is the weird girl. She's the weird goth girl at the school because she likes electric waves. So obviously, you know, these are the lesbian couple. And why do we say that they're her what's the word? Surrogate parents? Well, one of the things that makes Toru an interesting character is she is orphaned, basically. She was living with her grandfather because her dad died suddenly from an illness. And then I believe a year earlier to when this first episode happened, her mom died in a motorcycle accident.
I thought it was the other way around.
Nope. The dad died because he was sick.
Well, yeah, but I thought he died before the mom did.
No, he died first.
Okay.
He died first because remember there are flashbacks where we see the mom but we don't see the dad. Mm. All you see is like the picture of the dad. So yeah, the dad died first and then the mom did.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, the dad died first, then the mom. And the mom died in a motorcycle accident. And unfortunately, I believe that the way that they have it in the timeline is it was the previous year that it happened. And then she went to go live with her grandfather. So that's why they are basically her surrogate parents, because they both know her mom and are sad to see her go, but also they have just such a love for Toru, which, as you're going to find out throughout a majority of the series, everybody just kind of gets drawn to Toru. Especially the Soma family. The Soma family has a weird drawing to them, and we got to skip things along because we got 25 episodes to go through, but we get introductions to those characters. We also, after a long day of both school and also Toru's part-time job, she goes back to her home in a tent, and the tent is gone because a mudslide happened earlier in the day, and her tent is just underneath all of that. And so now she's dead tired. She's actually got a bit of a fever now because she's been living out in a tent, and so thankfully Shigure and Yuki kind of happen upon her, and they realize, oh yeah, by the way, she's been living out near our property because the entire area is the property of Shigure Soma. So at that point, or rather, it's the Soma family that owns it. And so they then offer to have her come stay the night with them because obviously her tent is destroyed and they're going to have to go fish everything out. And while doing that, they then get to hear her backstory. Her mom died and her dad died, and so Yuki and Shigure kind of gain a little bit of an affection for her. The next morning, they basically offer to let her stay at their home while her grandfather's house is being renovated. And all they ask in return is that basically she be their maid. So like she clean up the place, and it's a mess because, you know, two guys have been living there the entire time. And even though we call Yuki a prince, he is a messy son of a bitch. Mm. He really is. And just as they come to that agreement, we are then introduced to their cousin, Kiyo-soma, who, out of nowhere, just comes out and challenges Yuki to a fight because, you know, that's what he does. That's his shtick. He likes to challenge Yuki to a fight, and amidst all of the commotion of this, the ending of the episode has Toru get pushed into Yuki, and all of a sudden, poof, it's not a boy there anymore, it's a little rat. And they have a chain reaction, and poof, poof, we have a little cat and a little dog. And that's how the episode ends, literally. It's like, this is the quirk of the series, is these Soma men turn into cute, cuddly little animals. So, what was your take on that first episode?
Like for this one or at the beginning?
No, just the episode period.
Well, I mean, it's not surprisingly a shock, but, you know, the first time I've ever checked out the series because Alex recommended it to me, I was kind of like, wow, that's kind of
So
shocking.
You already kind of knew the quirk, and this is a setup that you like, that they did, is that not only do you have some good characters to be able to get behind, but you also had a quirk in the fact that these 3 Soma men turn into a rat, a cat, and a dog.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this episode too. We're not, because of the fact that this is just a brief synopsis, we're not going to rate these things. Because I do want to leave this open that if we want to do season 1, we can rate it then.
Yeah.
So at that point, but it is a good setup, I would say. And so now we go into episode 2, which is They're All Animals. So after the initial shock of poof, rat, cat, dog, and also the fact that they can talk in their animal forms, this is just getting all kinds of Disney, isn't it? Shigure then explains to Yuki, or not to Yuki, but Toru, that their family is under a curse. And that curse is basically that whenever they are hugged, I believe it's just hugged, right? Hugged by the opposite sex, they then turn into their animal of the Chinese zodiac. And I believe the way that they have this is that they are actually born in their corresponding years. So, Shigure was born in the year of the dog, Yuki was born in the year of the rat, and Kyo was born in the year of the cat. Well, no, that wouldn't work, but because him and Yuki are close in age, and also there is no year of the cat. So cat's got its own rules to it, but they have this going on, and it's a closely guarded family secret in the Soma family. In fact, they could actually get in really big trouble if the main family found out that a person of the opposite sex, a girl, was living with Yuki and Shigure. So, like, the entire episode is kind of...
Well, an outsider.
An outsider, period. And now the outsider knows the secret. So a lot of the episode is like, oh, okay, well, this is a big problem, and there's one of 2 possible ways this could go. Is either the family will be okay with that, or rather the head of the family has to be notified, named Akito, whether or not they approve of it, and it'll be okay, or, as Yuki tells her later in the school day, if Akito doesn't approve of it, then her memory has to be erased. Basically, she can't, and she'll be removed, kind of thing, and they'll probably be punished for it. So at that point, like, there's this whole kind of weight on the Somas that day on whether or not Toru will be allowed to continue to stay with them, or if they're going to get punished, basically. And Yuki even goes out of his way to kind of explain this to Toru because he feels obligated to do so. And this is actually where we get kind of like a opening door into the character aspect of Yuki as well as Kyo. Because Yuki, we find out a little bit in this episode, he's had a bit of a sheltered childhood, and a lot of it is because he's been in the Soma estate hidden away because of an incident that happened years before where a kid found out that he was a rat. And so he actually got punished for this, and it's left a lot of scars on him. So that's why he feels like he has to tell Toru, because he doesn't want her memories erased. He likes her. Not in that sense. Like, they're really good friends. even though the first season really hints that there might be a relationship between the 2 of them. So you have that, but then you also have the introduction of Kyo, why Yuki doesn't like Kyo and why they fight and everything like that. And we don't really get too many answers on that because we'll get that in the next episode. But we find out that when Shigure went to go see Akito, there were a couple of things that happened. One, Kyo has been transferred to Toru and Yuki's school into their class. So he will be attending middle school with Yuki, which obviously Yuki's so happy about, right? He is just absolutely happy about it. And Toru is not sure how she feels about it because she likes that he's the cat of the Zodiac, but the cat has claws. That's the easiest way to put it, guys. He actually is very snappish with Toru in the first couple of episodes. He's not the best social dude, is he? In that first time that we meet him. But thankfully, after the meeting, we find out that Akito is willing to let Toru stay with now the 3 of them, because Kyo will also be living with Shigure and Yuki. And Toru. 3 guys, 1 girl. This is a complicated situation. So at that point, he's okay with, or the head of the family is okay with it for the moment, but they'll be watching, to make sure that there are no other big accidents or anything like that. So the other thing that I also want to mention here is, and this is a touching moment and kind of tells you a lot about Toru's character, is Yuki comes out and confesses that, she might have her memory erased because this has happened before and it's not allowed to. And she comforts him by basically saying, well, I don't like that, but the only thing I'd ask is, if they do erase my memory, would you still be my friend? That kind of tells you who Toru is, right? She's very sweet, and she's always looking out for other people's best interests, not necessarily her own. She's got a little bit of a problem here, and I hope it gets addressed in season 3, where she puts everybody else above herself. And so it's a nice touching moment with Yuki, and this is kind of where I say this isn't like a regular slice of life, because you have actual drama happening. You have characters to be able to attach to. So that's basically episode 2. And yeah, any thoughts on that one that you want to share? No, that's actually a good moment. You're kind of holding in a tear, because it's a good moment.
Oh yeah.
So episode 3, let's play Rich Man, Poor Man. I still don't know how this game works. I ought to go look it up and see if it's an actual card game.
What?
Rich Man, Poor Man. Because I've heard mixed opinions on that. So in this episode, they're prepping for a school cultural festival, and it's proposed that they establish a rice ball stand for their classroom. This is also Kyo's first introduction to the classroom, and he's just about as social with everybody else as he is with Yuki and Toru, which is to say he's very standoffish. So a lot of this episode is kind of based on Kyo, in the fact that he doesn't like the social atmosphere. He doesn't like the fact that they have a girl living with them. Lots of things are going against Kyo at this point. And Toru is trying so hard to get to know Kyo. And it's almost like this is the gag of the episode. She tries really hard to get to know him. He lashes out at her. She kind of skulks away, and then somebody punishes him for it. So either it's going to be Yuki that punishes him for it, or it's going to be Uetani, I think, does it once, where, they're just like, you're not handling this very well. So we have that, but also we have another cool thing that's learned about Yuki is that he has a secret vegetable garden that is tended to here. Near Shigere's house, and so he lets Toru know this secret so she can help out with protecting the secret base, is what they call it. This actually helps her to kind of talk things out with Yuki, and also maybe work out some of the issues of jealousy between Kyo and Yuki, and a lot of it is based on their zodiac forms. They just hate each other. So like they are literally cat and mouse in real life.
The enemies of.
Yes, they are natural enemies, and then also, in conjunction with the Zodiac story where the rat tricked the cat, there's an animosity there too. So a lot of that is based off of that, and a lot of it also is based on a common jealousy that they have of each other. Specifically, Kyo has, because they both know martial arts, and Yuki is what looks like a lot better than Kyo is, and Kyo loves martial arts. So that's an insult to him personally. So we go further into the episode, and Toru is trying her hardest to be able to get along with Kyo, and it's not working out until one of the things that Yuki does, or that Kyo does, like a cat, is that when he's thinking about things, he goes to the roof. So like he goes to the roof of a place like the school or Shigere's house and goes to think. So she goes up to the roof to go talk to him and tries to actually establish a relationship. And it works. Because one of the things that Toru does a lot of the time, especially in this season, is remind everybody of life lessons that she learned from her mom. which makes everybody want to know Toru's mom because they're such common sense lessons. And so through basically a story about Toru's mom teaching Toru to be more positive about other people, they then kind of establish a relationship, and Kyo can then kind of like talk about how much he loves martial arts, and even though she doesn't get it, now they have a friendship. So yay, everybody's friends now. All while Shigure is just like, Shigure's role in this is basically to bait everybody. That's all he does. He's basically the troll of the house. How appropriate since he's the dog. Yeah. Any thoughts on this one?
Oh, it was just.
I like the constant formula of Toru tries to do something nice, Kyo boom, then she skulls off, and then he gets punished.
Well, it's appropriate since he's redhead there.
Well, he is the redhead. Well, he's orange head.
Orange head.
He's orange head because he's an orange cat.
Well, true, but still.
So we have that, and then we have episode 4. What year is she? And this is where we start to get introduced to the other Zodiac. Because this is the introduction of Kagura Soma, which is the first girl that we've met in the Soma family and who is also a member of the Zodiac. Because as you'll find out, a lot of the Zodiac family members know each other really well and hang out regularly. And Kagura is about Yuki, Kyo, and Toru's age, but I want to say she's a couple years older, because I think it's imposed that where they might be in middle school, she's in high school at that point. So we get to meet Kagura. Any thoughts on Kagura before I get into this?
She's the which one?
She's the boar.
Somehow I always thought she was slightly younger, but...
Yeah, I'd encourage you to go back to watch that season as well as the 2002 series, because they point out she's older.
Okay, well, I don't
She's
know.
older. But it's not by much. It's like 2 years or something like that. So Kyo is the trophy husband in that relationship. I'm kidding. One of the reason I bring that up is because Kagura has a thing for Kyo. Yes, no, you heard me right. They are... It's weird because the Soma family is so big that like it's not necessarily a bad thing. They just share the same curse. And so Kagura treats Kyo like she's his girlfriend, roughly. And she's always trying to get him to go out on dates and everything like that. And he's a boy, a teenage boy, so he tries to brush her off. And then she starts to threaten to kill him. Because, that's how relationships work, right? I know so many times when we went out on dates, you'd threaten me with a knife because we didn't do it right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a complicated thing. And Kagura is one of those where we start to realize that every Zodiac member has a very complicated past. And part of it is because of the curse. Part of it is also just because of, how they were raised, as well as the struggles that they deal with. But we do actually learn 2 interesting things. One from the previous episode that I forgot to mention. For some reason, in heightened stressed situations, the animals of that Zodiac member will come to try and comfort the corresponding Zodiac member. So, for example, one of the things that makes Kyo all freaked out is cats start coming to him. And so he has to go up to the roof of the school when everybody's kind of teasing him about it. The same thing happens for Yuki with rats, and for dogs with Shigure, and also for Kagura. But at this point, we don't know what she is. We just know that she's a Zodiac member. The thing we learn about in this episode is that even though Kagura is a girl, she can hug Kyo and Yuki and they don't transform. But she has the same restriction. If somebody of the opposite sex hugs her outside of the Zodiac, she will transform.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that could be a whole lot more confusing, especially since I forgot to mention this detail. When they come, it's a temporary thing, and when they turn back to their human forms, they're naked. This is actually kind of funny to see Toru go through. It's great.
Yeah, but their clothes vanish, and it's like, what?
No, their clothes don't vanish. Because, there's a lot of times where Yuki is stuck in all of his clothes
I guess
getting out as a rat. So like she'll just basically gather up the clothes.
I guess that's true.
But when they transform back, they're naked. So obviously this would be a little bit more complicated with Kagura. So with Kagura, we also learn another big problem, which is that is it safe to say that she's got a very manic kind of personality? And that personality tends to, like, full of maybe manic's not the word I'm looking for, like a very bipolar personality where she has highs and lows and they hit at weird times. And that gets her into a lot of trouble because, like, she can have these cute, innocent moments with Kyo. Then Kyo is Kyo, and then she'll destroy the house because that's Kagura. And this actually happens quite a bit in this episode where she sees Toru living with Kyo and immediately sees, like, a rival. And so whenever Toru's doing something around the house, Kagura insists to do it too. So she insists to do the laundry, she insists to make dinner, and I'm kind of surprised that she did the shopping too. And I'm kind of surprised Shigure still has a house after all of it. In fact, the episode kind of hits its climax when enough things go wrong in Kagura's day that the whole house is a mess and she has to clean it up because it's all her fault. And so Toru then immediately starts helping her. And part of the reason she's doing it by herself is she insists that it has to be that way. She made the mess. She's got to clean it up. But Toru, because Toru is Toru, comes in and helps, mentions a wonderful lesson learned by her mom, and then Toru and Kagura are the best of friends after that. Like, she understands that there's no competition there, and that she can still have, like, her little crush on Kyo, and that won't affect anything, really. And then at the very end of the episode, we finally get to find out what Kagura is. And I love how this happens. Basically, she's getting ready to go, and the mailman stops by and accidentally bumps into Kagura. And I love this concept because when they say hug by the opposite sex, nobody's giving her, like, actual hugs. It's just like, run into them and you're in their chest kind of thing, and then poof, and there's a little pig because she is the boar. So we get to have that moment where Kagura turns into a little pig. She's a little boar, and immediately Yuki, Kyo, and Shigure play cover and get the mailman out of the way as quick as possible because they don't want him to notice that, you know, there's this little boar there now. And then poof, we find out that the naked problem is very much a problem for Kagura as well. Because, naked girl, right there, right in front of everybody. So there you go. And that's the introduction to Kagura. Anything that you want to add on this one?
No.
Yeah, Kagura is an abrasive personality, but she kind of works out near the end of where we're up to.
But it suits her.
Yep. But the way that this episode ends is Toru gets a call from her grandfather. The renovations are done. And it turns out that some of her grandfather's other family are going to be coming to stay with him as well. And so it's finally time for Toru to stop living with the Somas. And, you know, this is the time where everybody's like, wow, the season got canceled that quick? Like, that's the whole premise here, is that she gets to live with all the Somas and all that. Nope. So the next episode, I've been fooling myself, is based in the fact that Toru goes to live back to live with her grandfather and her, I want to say, estranged extended family, because, well, everybody's a dick in Toru's family, but somehow she isn't. Okay, after a bit of a parent interruption. So the renovations for Toru's grandfather's house are done, and they're going to be living with extended family. And I should point out that the grandfather is her paternal grandfather, so her dad's dad. So all of these are from her dad's side of the family. And now that she's living with them, we find, to kind of sum this up, because we could go deeper into this when we actually analyze the episode, her extended family are douches. They're absolute douche nozzles. They absolutely are. Especially since we find out that the aunt that they're living with hired a private detective to look into Toru because of reasons. There's stuff going on with her family and Japanese family lifestyle and all that. But she finds out that not only was Toru living with the Somas, but this also gets hinted at in later episodes. It also includes her mother Kyoko's, quote, violent past. Nothing gets mentioned of it, but this is like the nice little thread to kind of tie it back later. And so basically this is where, okay, I know that some people have a love of Toru's grandfather. I don't. I think he's a douche nozzle as well, because her extended family is outright calling her a whore.
Well, the grandfather years?
Yes, because he didn't step in soon enough.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say.
Because, like, I'm sorry, like, if it's the aunt who's related to him or the husband who is, one of them should have gotten bitch slapped easily 10 minutes into the episode before anybody else did. Especially when we found out about the detective. Okay? Like, you didn't trust your family, so you hired a private detective to go look into them. Like, that's douchery on a whole other level. And frankly, that should have been something that was punished by the grandfather going, you know what? This is my house. Why the fuck are you doing that? Get out. Kind of thing. Because they do make it sound like the grandfather is the one doing all this. So the grandfather is still the head of the household. And he did not step in soon enough. But the whole episode kind of centers around Toru's not happy in this situation, and they give you a reason why. Like, she's being called a whore, not outright called a whore, but she's being inferred that she was. Like, she was at the Soma house and she was just giving it to everybody, kind of thing. And we also bounce to Shigure, Kyo, and Yuki, all very sad that Toru's gone. And it's gotten to a point where they can't even talk to her at school because they're so sad that she's gone. It's a sad situation. And ultimately it comes to a boiling point where then she does actually get called a whore by her aunt's son. And then the grandfather steps in and smacks him for doing that. But we find out that Yuki and Kyo, after being urged by Shigure to go see Toru because they miss her, they find her in this situation, and they step in, and as soon as they are there to see Toru, the first time ever, Toru just bursts into tears because she doesn't like her living situation. She wants to go back and live with Shigure. Mm-hmm. Which the grandfather, I mean, I know I called him a douche, but he eventually just says, if you're going to be happy you're there, then I'll be more than happy to let you live there. Like, I don't have a problem with it. Because as we're finding out, like, unlike the rest of his douchebag family, he actually likes her mom. He likes her. And so at that point, he, like, as an actual grandparent or parent, he wants her to be happy. So he okays everything. Go live with the Somas. I'll help you out with furniture and everything like that. If you need any extra money, just let me know. Toru will never take advantage of this because it's Toru. She doesn't want to inconvenience anybody. Mm-hmm. Hence why I'm also kind of mad at her in this episode, because she just took the punishment because she didn't want to be a bother. You don't do that. But that's pretty much how it ends. Is like they do this temporary arrangement and then she moves back in with the Somas. Good thing too, because like this is the episode that a lot of people would just like punch the TV over. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to add on that one?
No, that was just
It was a bad episode. Like, not bad in the sense of bad writing, but bad in the sense of holy shit.
That was a hard.
If I had this family, I would disown them as quickly as I could. I would only ever talk to the grandfather, and that'd be it. So then we move to. So this is 1/5 in, by the way. I'm moving as fast as we can, people. Episode 6. Perhaps we should invite ourselves over. You want to know another interesting fact? Again, Toru does not want to inconvenience anybody. So, guess who she didn't tell that she was living in the woods in a tent? Her two lesbian mothers. I have no other term to call them. She didn't tell Uotani. She didn't tell Saki, Hanajima. And so at that point, they find out the hard way that, yeah, she not only did she go live in the woods in a tent in the middle of winter, but now she's living with Yuki and Kiyosoma. So, A, they're hurt that they were never told. But on top of that, because they're motherly figures to her, they want to make sure things are okay. It's just cute, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So they then decide that it will be a good idea for them to spend the night with the Somas to make sure that things are on the level. But before that, we have to deal with the school festival, because that's a plot line in this episode. Remember how they had to do a rice ball stand? Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of things have been added since then. For some reason, because Yuki has princely / feminine features, the class decided that since he's their class rep, that he ought to be in a cute little princess dress during this.
I don't know how they...
I don't know why he agreed. I really don't. Because this is one of those things where even as a class rep, you'd be like, hell no? And no, he did. He agreed to it. And he is getting laughed at the entire time because it works so well. And he just doesn't want to deal with it. Here's what makes it worse. 2 more Somas decide to come and visit the rice ball stand. So we are now introduced to Yuki's cousin Momiji, who is a year younger than them and is a cute little German boy. He's got a very strong German accent. He's a cute little blonde German boy. Well, Japanese German boy. Let's put it that way. And then we also get introduced to Hattori Soma, who is the Soma family doctor. This guy is about Shigure's age, and as we find out, he's friends with Shigure. So we get introduced to 2 of these people, and obviously one of the reasons we get introduced is because Yuki apparently missed his checkup with Hattori. Hattori's kind of a douchebag when it comes to stuff like this, and he immediately conducts the examination in the middle of in front of everybody with Yuki in a dress. Not a good day for Yuki, you might imagine. So much so that it gets to a boiling point where Yuki runs out and goes to the roof and immediately starts taking the dress off. Like he doesn't want anything to do with this anymore. And Toru runs after him and finds him in this heap of dress because something got stuck in his hair or whatever and he can't get out. And so then we have the obligatory moment where Toru reminds everybody of a common sense lesson she learned from her mom to be able to help Yuki through his troubles. And during the trying to fix the situation, she then finds out that Hattori is actually also the person responsible for erasing memories in the Soma family. So when there's an incident, Hattori handles it. So yeah, there's a little bit of a danger now because, Hattori might have been sent by the head of the family to renege on the deal. Oh noes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that little plot line ends, although Hattori does ask that, or actually calls Toru later to set up an appointment to speak with her in private. And he does that with no one else knowing, because he wants to be able to talk to her. So you have that kind of looming over. But then we go into the plot line of Uetani and Saki Hanajima coming over and spending the night at the Soma household. And hilarity ensues because it's just a bunch of situations where Toru's trying to make everything work out. We have accidental hugs happening left and right, where they then have to cover up the fact that Yuki and Kyo aren't there anymore. Wait, they went to the bathroom mischievously. And then also we learn something very interesting about Shigure in this. We find out that Shigure, as a profession, writes Harlequin romances, basically, which are a big thing in Japan. They are. So much so that Hanajima actually reads one of them and is very engaged in it. And then he's like, oh, would you recommend it to anybody? Looks over at Toru and goes, absolutely not. So I love the fact that she's keeping the smut for herself. So We then get to have some cute moments where we then learn about how Arisa and Saki both know her mom, both know Toru very well, and because of her mom's death have just kind of stepped in as like a surrogate mom for her, and how they both very, very, very much love Toru and want to keep her safe. And amidst all of that, we also learn an interesting story that was not in the 2002 series. One day, Toru got lost and could not find her way home. And it just so happens that a little boy in a baseball cap found her and took her home. And she actually has the baseball cap to this day and has kept it ever since then, kind of thing. And we'll find out more about this, but it's something from the manga that wasn't in the original series. So we have that. Final thoughts on that one. Just the two incidences. What do you think of Momiji meeting him right off the bat, as well as Hatori? Also, I should point out we have an incident at the school festival where Momiji tries to hug Toru, and we get to find out that he is the rabbit of the Zodiac.
Oh, I loved Momiji.
He's a very effeminate boy. And so at that point, you love him, I'm annoyed by him. You have the Toru reaction to him, I have the Kyo reaction. Because he's annoying as hell. But we don't know what Hatori is. Well, then we go into episode 7, which is Spring Comes. And this, if people remember, Hatori set up an appointment to meet with Toru at the Soma estate. So she actually gets to go to the Soma family estate, where she is then greeted by Momiji after she gets kind of lost in the estate, and Momiji actually takes her to meet Hatori. And Hatori, the way that we've met him so far, he's very cold, he's very logical, very much a doctor kind of thing. And this is kind of no difference. He kind of takes a very cold response to Toru, especially with Toru living in Shigere's house. He doesn't know if he likes the idea because even though Akito approved of it, he doesn't agree, kind of thing. Well, long story short, long appointment short, basically, they have their discussions, and he's basically saying, it might be best for Toru to move out. And an accident ensues where she's kind of out of sorts, and Toru accidentally trips on the walkway and is about to hit her head on a rock.
Uh-oh.
And Hatori steps in to help her, and in turn, in the process, hugs her. And then when Toru gets up, she's laying down next to a seahorse.
Funny how a
seahorse with a very big bump on his head. And so immediately her reaction is, water. Where are we going to find water? Hatori, where am I supposed to find water? And in case people cannot tell what this means, a seahorse is another common symbol with dragon in Japan. So he is the dragon of the Zodiac. So Toru attempts to help the unconscious Hatori, and we actually start to learn about his past. We know a little bit because of Momiji, because when she goes to do her appointment, she notices a picture of a girl in his office. And Momiji mentions who it is. Her name is Kana Soma. And apparently they were involved for a time, and then the relationship ended. The rest of the episode is a flashback to Hatori with Kana. Back when he was thinking of, quote, his spring. This is actually one of my favorite episodes because we find out that a lot of the reasons that Hatori is cold and logical is because at one point, he was just kind of a regular guy until he met Kana. And then he was then opened up to his spring because she entered his life, and they were very happy together. And then they went to the family head, Akito, to ask to be married. And we start to learn that Akito is not a benevolent head of the family. He's actually quite abusive. And in turn, I want to say, does Hatori wear an eye patch? I don't think he does.
I don't think he wore an eye patch, but I thought he wore a bandage after what
Well, he
happened.
wore a bandage after, but I'm trying to think, like, in his regular everyday deal, I don't think he wears a headband or, like, an eye patch.
No, he doesn't.
No, he just, like, we just kind of see things the way that they are. But after asking, and Akito lashes out in a violent rage, basically injures Hatori's left eye and blames Kana for it. And Kana immediately, like, because of the weird powers of the head of the family, also believes she did it. And so she, like, spirals into depression. And ultimately what had to happen in order to cure Kana is that Hatori had to erase their memories. And so he didn't get what he wanted. He didn't get his spring. Eventually his winter came again, and now he can't love anybody because, like, that might be what happens. So that's why Hatori is the way he is. After that flashback, that's when he wakes up. And Toru explains, like, what Momiji told her. And what's funny about a lot of this is that we start to see a lot of similarities between Kana and Toru, especially when Kana found out about, because not every Soma family member knows about the curse. As we find out when they went on a date and she leaned in for a kiss and turned him into a seahorse. And what was her reaction? Water, 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 water. So at that point, you know, that's how, like, Hatori knew it was meant to be, and then the incident happened. But what also kind of melts Hatori on her living with Kyo and Yuki is just out of nowhere, he decides to ask a question that he asked Kana way back because of the unusual answer she gave. And so she asked him, and then she explained it, which is, when the snow falls, or when the snow melts, what does it become? And so he asks Toru, and Toru answers the exact same way Kana would. And so this is like the indicator that Hatori can trust her because she's so much like Kana.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he doesn't have a problem with her living there anymore. And in fact, he becomes kind of a regular member of the cast. So, like I said, this is one of my favorite episodes. What about you?
It was a really...
I like it because it's kind of like we learn a lot more about Hatori, and now there are relatable members of the Soma family. It isn't just real, like, because it's hard to call Yuki and Kyo relatable. Shigure maybe, but like Momiji, not very relatable, especially to people around our age. But Hatori is somebody that we can relate to, kind of thing. So that actually really helps. So, any other thoughts you want to add on this one?
No,
because I don't let you talk enough. So, episode 8. See you when you get back. So it is New Year's Eve now, and Arisa and Saki actually asked Toru if they want to spend New Year's Eve at either of their houses, which Toru declines because she decides she wants to spend it with the Somas. Well, then she finds out that the Somas actually have to go to the Soma estate to spend the next 3 days celebrating the Zodiac Banquet. So they basically reenact the Zodiac Banquet with the Soma Zodiac members. So it's kind of like a tease, like we'll be able to see like some of the other Zodiac members, but it doesn't come to be. So Shigure actually says, yeah, they'll be over at the Soma family estate for the next 3 days. So she'll be all alone at Shigure's house, which he's okay with it. And she's like, I understand. Yuki and Kyo, however, are not, as at this point, they basically become her two bodyguards. So Arisa and Saki are like her two surrogate moms. Kyo and Yuki have become her two bodyguards, roughly, because they are attached to her at the hip. Not in that way, people. So at that point, like, they don't like the idea of going to the family estate because Toru will be alone. And Kyo already doesn't want to go to the estate because he hates the Soma family, and there's a long line of history that we don't know yet.
Yeah, but he's not invited.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The cat's not invited because that's the tradition. But Yuki doesn't want to go because he does not like going to the main estate because it brings back all the bad memories, kind of thing. Long story short of this episode, because there's really not too much on it, is while on their way to the New Year's banquet, Yuki and Kyo decide not to go, run back to Shigere's house where they find Toru crying because she's all alone on New Year's Eve, and they spend New Year's together. Not in that way, people. It's a cute relationship. There's no like actual relationship yet. So yeah, that's pretty much episode 8 is the conflict that the Somas don't want to go. Shigure goes and takes the heat, but then they don't really do much else there. Anything else you want to add there?
Oh,
it's just cute that they went back.
Yeah.
And she was alone and she had tears on her face, and
oh yeah,
it's a cute little relationship they have right now. Episode 9, Yuki was my first love. Thankfully, actually, no, never mind. This isn't what I thought it was. I thought this was a different episode. So the third term at their school begins after New Year's, and we do know that Kyo and Yuki are getting some level of heat from the Somas because because Yuki dodged, kind of thing. And I think Kyo went with them as well. Like, he had to go to the estate, but he wasn't involved in the banquet. So there's heat for them, but we also get introduced to a new Soma. Because I believe they meet up with not Momichi, but I can't. Yeah, I don't think Momichi was there, but it's a whole other reason. In their first day, they have like this long distance run event that they have to do that no student wants to do, and they're getting forced to do it. But Yuki is dealing with symptoms of what looks like a cold because of New Year's. So at that point, like they're kind of hinting that something's going to happen with that. And in the middle of their run, they run into their other cousin, Hatsuharu Soma. Hatsuharu, or Haru, we'll probably be using Haru to talk about him, is also a year younger than them, and he is a very mellow individual, it looks like, but he's dressed kind of weird. Because he's got earrings, and he looks kind of punky, and on top of that, he has black and white hair. Kind of unusual. He real like when you look at Haru right off the bat, he looks like that punk in your class, you know, which is funny because he's polite. So he doesn't really meet into any of that. Well, we find out that Haru has actually been looking for Kyo and Yuki since New Year's. He actually is also a Zodiac member, and he dodged to go find Yuki and Kyo, specifically Kyo. Because I guess it's a tradition that when they all meet up, they all have a big martial arts fest. And they all try to kick the crap out of each other. And Kyo dodged, so Haru decided he would go and look for Kyo. And even though Kyo is refusing to do it because he is very committed to the race simply because he wants to prove that he can one-up Yuki, he refuses to fight with Haru, and then we learn something very interesting about Haru. Haru has multiple personalities. So the one that we've been meeting this entire time is called White Haru. Now we get to...
The calm and cool and collected.
The calm, cool, polite, collected
side of
one. And now we get to meet Black Haru, which is Yusuke Urameshi light. People will know what I mean. You don't know what I mean. We'll get there. Black Haru is basically a punk. And so he immediately wants to fight with Kyo. He's even making hintings that he will basically take Toru to the back and rape her if Kyo refuses to fight him. He does do it, but do we really think Haru would actually do it? Black Haru looks murderous, but I kind of wonder if it's all basically an act. Am I the only one that thinks that? Mm-hmm. Well, because he says to Kyo, basically, I'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. It's like, did he just infer that he was gonna... Really? Kind of thing. And so they actually get into a fight, but because of their fight, Yuki... The other thing I should also point out, Haru's got a weird fascination with Yuki, almost as if he's in love with Yuki. And it comes out really hard with Black Haru because he actually hits on Yuki. So, long story short, Yuki's symptoms start to get the better of him, and we find out because of Hatori that he actually had like a lot of bronchitis and stuff like that as a kid, so he's very susceptible to colds. Well, he collapses because of the cold, and he's about to transform. That's the other condition of transforming, is that if they're overly stressed or overly ill, and their body can't handle it, they revert back to their Zodiac form. And so now we have a big problem where he could turn into a rat with all these kids running across the track and see that happen. So Haru then decides, okay, well, we need to get him back to Shigere's house ASAP. Let's go get a cab. And Yuki says, no, we can't get a cab. We can't do that because there's a possibility he could transform in the cab and then they'd have a whole other problem. So then Haru says, well, then I guess I've got to do this. And immediately lunges at Toru and hugs her.
Oh, no.
And then we find out that he is the cow of the Zodiac. Well, the ox. But yeah, he's the cow. See, a lot of us kind of went there and went, oh my gosh, is he actually going to make do on his threat? No, he's just hugging her so that he can turn into a cow and they can walk Yuki back on a cow. Gee, I don't know why that wouldn't draw eyes to it, but apparently it wouldn't. So they get him back to the house and they help him deal with his fever and everything like that. And Haru actually does explain kind of the backstory between him and Yuki, why he has such an affection for him. And it's partly because as a kid, he would be made fun of for being stupid, obviously because he's the cow. And in the tale, if people remember, the rat rode the cow to the banquet. Mm-hmm. So at that point, he's like the stupid minion. And he kind of took that mentality with him. And that's how Black Haru was created, is that his resentment for Yuki would eventually manifest in rage kind of thing. And they actually did have a day where Yuki and Haru met each other. And Haru just lashes out at him. And they're little kids at this point. Lashes out at Yuki. And blames him for all of the picking on that he's had to deal with. And Yuki just kind of looks at him and goes, well, I don't see you as stupid. And I don't see you as dumb. And that basically kind of creates an affection for Yuki that Haru has with him now. That we can't tell if it's actual, like, he's gay in love for him or if he's just really good friends with him. That gets clarified. But yeah, we have that moment, and that's pretty much how this episode kind of goes. Any other thoughts you want to add on Haru?
He's something else.
I like Haru. Haru's one of my favorite characters because of the dual personality.
He's like, wow, your personality.
I just love it when the personality switches and every Soma in the room immediately goes like in their head, Black Haru. And it's just like, it's such a bad thing, but he looks so stupid doing it. Like I said, he's Yusuke Urameshi light. Anybody who's watched Yu Yu Hakusho will get that. We will introduce you to Yu Yu Hakusho eventually, I promise, because and I will have this comparison with you, is like, it's the same actor who plays Haru and Yusuke. And so when he's Black Haru, he's basically channeling Yusuke. So at that point, I'm going to ask you, like, who could actually win in a fight, Black Haru or Yusuke Urameshi? So that being said, episode 10, we're 2/5 into it, y'all. It's Valentine's Day after all, but thankfully we're going to have a couple of episodes that are fairly light because not a whole lot happens. It's just more heartfelt moments that happen between Kyo, Yuki, and Toru. So Valentine's Day after all, it's basically Valentine's Day, and everybody is getting ready for that, including Kagura, who is bringing, I guess it's a tradition in Japan for you to make chocolate for your significant other kind of thing, or to buy chocolate kind of thing. And so Kagura actually makes a bunch of chocolate that Kyo promptly refuses because he's a boy, and boys don't do that because cooties. I swear, that's the only reason he avoids Kagura is because cooties.
Oh, come on, Kyo, you don't believe that.
I think he still does. But yeah, so you have that moment, but then we also have Toru, while they're back at Shigure's house, distributing their stuff, where she distributes all the chocolate that she got for every Soma member that she's met so far. Okay, so Hatori got one, Momichi got one, Hatsuharu got one, Kagura got one. So did Yuki, Kyo, and Shigure, and Risa, and Saki. Like, all the friends got one. I'm guessing her grandfather got one too. But while everybody kind of notices that that she went out and got all this chocolate for them, then a call comes in from her grandfather where they've heard from her school that she's late on paying her tuition. And then they all kind of realize, because they've also noticed she's been pulling a lot of shifts at her work, and they realize, oh shit, she's been working double time to be able to pay for the chocolate, because this is good chocolate. This is not like stuff you buy at the grocery store. This is good shit. Okay? And so now they immediately all feel bad, and they immediately all want to make it up to her and be able to show that they have an affection for Toru. And that's the whole premise of the episode, is that they all want to show that they appreciate Toru. Specifically, Kyo and Yuki.
Oh, yes.
But the other cool part about this episode that I like to point out is that we also get to meet Mitsuru. Mitsuru is Shigure's editor. And as we are going to find out in later episodes, Shigure is the absolute worst person to work for, because he trolls the ever-living fucking shit out of her all the time. He never gets his deadlines. Well, no, he hits his deadlines, but he likes to troll her into thinking that he's got a miss.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird deal, but as we find out, Shigure in this series isn't as lovable as he was in the previous series. He's kind of a douche nozzle in a lot of ways, and it's kind of scary in a weird deal. But anything else you want to add in on the Valentine's episode?
That was a sweet episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Valentine's episode, so there's not really a whole lot to get into. I'm even kind of reading the synopsis, and not a whole lot happens.
Oh, yeah.
So the next one that we have is episode 11, This Is a Wonderful Inn. So in honor of Toru getting him chocolate, Momiji in turn invites Toru, because White Day is coming up. White Day is a thing in the Japanese school year, and I don't know exactly what it means. But since White Day is coming up, Momiji invites Toru to the Soma family hot spring. Awkward! Especially since Momiji is a year younger than Toru. To which Yuki and Kyo explain, these are hot springs owned by the family. And in turn, it might actually be a good thing, because remember the concept. She did like double shifts and everything like that to pay for the chocolate, right? This is how we can make it up to her. So Yuki and Kyo say, like, go ahead and do it. This will be fun. Oh, wait, by the way, Momiji has also invited Yuki and Kyo. Kyo hates Momiji. It's good reason. We all hate Momiji if we're a guy. But ultimately, because of the chocolate stuff, Kyo agrees to go to the hot spring to celebrate for Toru. Okay, so they then go to the hot spring, and they get to meet I can't even remember what her name. I don't know if we ever know her name, but the hostess of the hot spring, who is a character even unto herself, who has to apologize for everything that is amiss that goes on. It's a typical hot spring episode, guys. The only thing that isn't typical here is, in most anime, in a hot spring episode, that's when the bikinis come out. That's not what's happening here. Sorry, guys. If you were hoping for some fan service, you will never get it of Toru. That's just the way it is. They've kind of built her that way. But we get to meet this hostess woman who apologizes for everything. And I literally mean everything.
Jeez, and we thought Toru liked to apologize.
Oh, trust me, it'll get worse. Because we also learn at the hot spring that the hostess has a son. That son is a member of the Zodiac. So we find out that he was born under the sign of the monkey, So that's kind of the hint, like he's the monkey of the zodiac. But it's probably safe to say that since both the mom, who is the hostess of the hot spring, and the dad, who is the head chef, that they both apologize for everything, he probably has that same personality trait. So we get to have some cute moments that happen, including the fact that Momiji actually thought he could get away with going to the same hot spring as Toru. You forgot that part, didn't you?
No, I'm just
Momiji is a year younger than them, guys, but he looks like a little boy. And so at that point, Kyo kind of hints at the fact that maybe he was taking advantage of the fact that he looks like a little boy to maybe go and take a peek, kind of thing. Which is cute because I don't think Toru has really gone through that part of her life yet. I don't know. They do everything to make her look like a little princess, so if she actually had boobs, I would be surprised. Because you never get any kind of hinting. I'm not being mean. I'm literally saying, like, that's how they paint Toru in this. So if she's hot, we'll never know. So you get to have moments like that. I also, one of my favorite scenes from this is that Kyo is trying to challenge Yuki to play ping pong there, and Yuki is refusing because Kyo and Yuki never get along. So Toru offers to play and just misses the ball, like, by a mile.
Mm-mm.
It's very clear she's never played it. And usually what happens in these moments is Kyo will go, "You suck," and then we'll all laugh about it. Yuki has to leave because he has to go actually have like a real Rothel moment over Toru's fail. And it's a great moment because a lot of what we get to see about Yuki is that he's very sheltered. He keeps everything close to the vest. And so when you have an outburst like this, it's genuine. And so at that point we get to have a cool little moment between Yuki and Toru on that, and that's pretty much it. Like that, they go to the hot spring and then they go back home, kind of thing. Sorry guys, no bikinis. Didn't happen. I think we're pretty much convinced at this point that that Toru doesn't even have a bikini. Should she? Well, that's a debate. And one that I don't want to take part of. Any other thoughts you want to add on this one? No? Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. She doesn't have anything to say about this episode. I will apologize to the gods that she doesn't have anything to say about this episode. Please forgive us. Sorry,
no, I was just gonna say it's like, well,
people needed an actual example.
It's like one that just kind of reminds you of some of those episodes in other animes like Pokemon or Digimon where they're all trying to get into the other Autumn when it's like, no, this is a girl.
That's a typical anime trait, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But the only difference is that we know Misty wears bikinis. So at that point, we go into episode 12. You look like you're having fun. So this is where apparently they've been on summer break, and the second school year begins with Toru. Now, like, Toru, Kyo, and Yuki are all going to be in the same class again, but Hatsuharu and Momiji are now first years at their school. So at that point, we get to have a nice little reunion of them, as well as a couple of problems, one of which being that Momiji is wearing a girl's uniform when he should be wearing a boy's uniform, and the class president has a problem with this. Well, doesn't really get solved, but we get to have some hilarity in that regard. Also, the fact that Hatsuharu is wearing jewelry and has two different hair colors. This is my favorite moment of the whole damn episode, because the school president does not believe that those are his original hair color. So Hatsuharu's response to this, after becoming Black Haru, has been to drag him to the boys' room. 5 minutes later, they come out, and the class president is going, "Amazing. I don't know how that happened." And then we wonder what happened. Did he show if the curtains matched the drapes? We're not sure. That's what I like to think that he did, is that he showed that the curtains do in fact match the drapes. So you get to have that moment. You also get to have a nice little touching moment between Kyo and Toru, where they kind of start to hint that there might be some kind of budding romance between the two of them. It's a subtle thing. We don't need to put too much into it. But we also get to have another interesting thing happen at the school this time, because since this is the first year for Hatsuharu and Momiji, it is customary that the Somas attend this ceremony, including the head of the family, Akito Soma. So this is like the first introduction of Akito. And Akito actually, out of nowhere, introduces himself to Toru with nobody else around, which it doesn't look like that's necessarily a bad thing until Yuki is told by Haru and Momiji that Akito is there, and while frantically looking for Toru, he finds Toru talking with Akito. And from there on in, we see some weird behavior with Yuki where he's experiencing some kind of post-traumatic stress by the very presence of Akito. And Toru kind of gets a handle on that and in turn tries to kind of protect him and maybe leaves a bad impression with Akito, but we can already kind of tell Akito's kind of a pretentious bastard kind of thing. He's very into himself. So after that, Yuki's very shook up by it. And I guess after the opening ceremony, Arisa and Saki had talked with Toru about playing some games after, with adding Momiji and Hatsuharu into that. And so they go off to have some fun and get Yuki's mind off of the traumatic experience. And we also get to have some interesting discussions between Hatori and Shigure, knowing the fact that Akito was coming to the school and that it might cause problems for Yuki. So that's pretty much the premise of this whole thing, is introducing Haru and Momiji into the series regularly, as well as having the first meeting of Akito Soma. Anything else you want to add in on that one?
No, just really great humor on...
Great humor, but also really great tension when Akito got brought in.
Oh, yes.
And I know that we're kind of brushing over this stuff. One of the things that's really cool about season 1, it covers pretty much everything we know from the original series. And then season 2 goes on its own. So at that point, we don't need to talk too much about it. And also, I'm leaving things open-ended so that we can do this later if we want to. So now we have episode 13, How Have You Been, My Brother? Where we now get to meet Yuki's older brother, Ayame Soma.
I still can't figure out how they are related in a way.
It's okay. People are still trying to figure that out to this day. Because Yuki is so down to earth and Ayame is so not. Ayame Soma is also a member of the Zodiac. It's actually a rare occurrence where 2 family members can be Zodiac members. And this is one of those occurrences because Ayame, who is the same age as Hatori and Shigure, also happens to be the snake. And we get to have a lot of really fun interactions with this little fact. So, especially the fact that the way that they meet Ayame, they start this episode off with Toru and Yuki going to the secret base to go work on things. And so at that point, Yuki and Toru are walking home from handling the secret base, and they come across an incident, or they think they see somebody off in the distance that might be running around, might be a bandit or something. So Yuki goes off to try and see what's going on. And then out of nowhere, something crawls up Toru's dress. And she's like, I don't know, it's in my clothes. And Yuki immediately is like, what the? And a little snake pops out of nowhere. And that's Ayame, everybody.
Did she get freaked out when she...
Yeah, she did. She's like, there's something under my clothes. And then the snake popped out. I love that introduction. It's great. And then we get to meet Ayame, and Ayame is, so like everything Yuki is, Ayame isn't. So Yuki is polite and down to earth, common sense, and Ayame is bombastic. He dresses in the most luxurious clothing.
He's like flamboyant.
He's very flamboyant. And that flamboyancy is not helped when Shigure is also in the room, because then the flamboyancy turns to a really weird form of gay chicken. I'm not kidding. You guys need to hear the dialogue to be able to understand that. So we get to learn a couple of things. One, we get to learn about Ayame, but we also get to learn that he is an older brother of Yuki's, but an estranged brother, because the way it worked is because he was so much older than Yuki, and because Yuki was sheltered in the Soma estate, Ayame kind of just treated it like he didn't exist for a lot of years. And now that Ayame is in his, I think that they hint at Shigure, Hattori, and Ayame all being kind of in their 20s, late 20s. He now wants to fix that. He wants to bridge the gap, and he wants to be a good brother to Yuki. And so he's trying very hard, but he also wants to meet Toru, because this is the other thing that starts to happen, is Zodiac members want to meet Toru. Why? Because she's having this weird effect on Yuki and Kyo, and no one can explain it. So what do they basically decide to do? Come to the house and see Toru. So Ayame takes Toru out to lunch, where he explains this backstory that I've gone over, and just kind of explains the situation between him and Yuki, why Yuki isn't really on his side, and they argue a lot, primarily because Yuki is very much a white knight kind of personality, and Ayame is not. So what does Toru do at this point? If you guys do not know what my answer is going to be, get ready, here it comes again, reminding of a story from her mom and trying to help out Ayame that way.
Tell one of her life lessons.
Yes. That's the purpose of Toru's mom in this first season, is she is the solving of all of life's problems. Because all Toru has to do is remember an old saying that her mom used to tell her. And that's it. So she helps out Ayame. Then we get to have another really great moment where I guess it got really cold. And Ayame, as the snake, is very susceptible to cold winds. And so they come back from the restaurant and they had a good time. And Toru asks Yuki about what he has against Ayame, and he doesn't really have anything against him. And then we start hearing Ayame's voice out of nowhere, and we're not sure where it's coming from. And then all of a sudden, out of the dress comes the snake. They did it again. And it's great. I love it. It's great, in my opinion. And just kind of shows the difference between Ayame and Yuki.
Jeez, who do you think is more of a pervert, him or? Oh,
definitely Ayame. Definitely Ayame. Especially with what we learn about him later. Definitely Ayame. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other details you want to add in with this episode?
Oh no.
There's something under my clothes. Love it. We'll continue to love it. And we're actually coming up on almost 2 hours. So maybe what we'll have to do is we'll have to cut this in 2 parts for season 1. Because it's 25 episodes to go over. Oh, so yes. We'll do the next 2, and then we'll leave the last 10 for the next one.
Okay.
And then we'll just do a part 2. Because I don't think season 2 is that long. If it is, then we'll cut that in half too. But episode 14, That's a Secret. So this is where we actually start to get background on Toru's mother, Kyoko. Because today is the anniversary of her mom's death. And so Toru, along with Yoki, I don't know why I said that, Yuki, Kyo, and Arisa, as well as Saki, go to visit Kyoko's grave. And we start to learn a little bit more about her mom. Not just the life lessons that Toru has been taught, but also who Kyoko was. Which is kind of cool, because remember, we got hinted that Kyoko had a violent past in previous episodes. And also, I believe Momiji... Momiji will make an appearance of this episode, but he doesn't go with them to the grave. So they go to have that moment, and one of the cool things about it is Arisa, where everybody else is dressed in black for a funeral, Arisa is wearing a black biker's jacket with a crimson butterfly on it. It turns out this actually belonged to Kyoko. She apparently had a reputation for being the crimson butterfly, because when she would ride her motorcycle, she would look like a crimson butterfly flying past.
Wasn't she in a bike gang?
Yeah, she was in a biker gang.
Mm-hmm.
In a bike gang, and she was part of it. And this was kind of her role in it. So since Arisa has been a bit of a punk throughout most of her life, Kyoko resonated with that, and actually, as an inheritance, gave the crimson butterfly jacket to Arisa instead of to Toru. So we actually learned like she was part of a biker gang back in the day, and Arisa actually knew of her reputation and actually kind of idolized her, which is kind of like a teasing. Maybe we'll get more information on this some other day, but we actually get to learn a little bit more about Kyoko, as well as the relationship that she kind of had with Arisa and Saki along with Toru. We also get to have like good moments being had with Yuki being able to help mourn. And Kyo is also there, but Kyo's kind of giving this impression that he's very uncomfortable being there. And we're not sure why. Doesn't really ever get explained, but yeah, he's noticeably uncomfortable being at Kyoko's grave. So the next part of this episode is that... Oh, and also we learn a little bit more about Toru's dad here, because we didn't know, like... We didn't even know if she had a dad at that point. We actually... This is where they get told that her dad died of an illness before, when she was too young. She couldn't remember, and then Kyoko had the accident. Kind of thing. So that's where the clarification comes. But the next day on this one, Toru is working at the hospital that she works at, which just so happens, through sheer coincidence, is owned by the Somas. The Somas are everywhere in this series. And it turns out that Momiji's dad owns the hospital. So Momiji comes to pay a visit to Toru, and we actually get to meet Toru's mom, or Momiji's mom and dad, as well as his little sister, Momo. Except here's the thing. His mom doesn't know that she's his mom, which is kind of weird, right? Here's the reason for that. Momiji's backstory is this. When Zodiac members in the Soma family are born, they are actually born in their animal state. And so... You can only imagine that you just went through like an 8 or 9 hour labor and you gave birth to a rabbit.
Mm.
That's a little bit of a...
Well, I think, can you imagine giving birth to something bigger than...
Yeah, well, I mean, the doctor would have questions. Well, maybe the doctor would be Hatori, so maybe not. But yeah, so that happens, but there's also another thing that happens with the mom. In the case of a Zodiac member... They either overly attach to the Zodiac member, where they're always involved in their lives, or they reject them completely. And in this case, Momiji's mom was the latter. She rejected Momiji outright and did not want to see her as the mother of the rabbit that she gave birth to. And so, in turn, Momiji's dad spoke with Hatori and wiped her memories of giving birth to Momiji. And then at that point, Momiji's dad kind of put him off in his own living space in the Soma estate. And from there on in, his dad would be the sole parent that took care of Momiji and tried to be both mom and dad to him. But then later, they gave birth to Momo, who is not a Zodiac member. And so at that point, like, he gets a little sister, but the mom doesn't know that she gave birth to Momiji. So at that point, he has to act like this distant friend or distant relation of Momo, which you can see is like tearing him up inside because he wants to admit that he's her older brother and all that, but he can't do it because his mom doesn't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to have this nurturing moment between Momiji, who now feels like a character instead of just an annoyance, and Toru, who's trying to comfort him because he doesn't get to have access to his family like everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a touching story that we get on that one. Anything else you want to add in on this one? Oh, I also should point this out. The other thing, too, is we get to know the origin of the baseball cap. So it turns out that the boy that led Toru home was Yuki. Yuki decided one day to run away from the Soma estate to get away from Akito because he has a lot of post-traumatic stress when it comes to Akito. And when he was doing that, he came across a little girl, and he helped her get home, and she took his baseball cap, and that was Yuki. Aww. So there you go. And she's the reason that he's the reason she has the baseball cap in her room. And I don't think he actually tells her that that's the reason why, but I can't remember. So anything else you want to add in there?
I couldn't remember who discovered the hat. Was it Kyo or was it?
It was first. It was Arisa and Saki. Remember, because they spent the night with Toru, and the baseball cap was out.
True.
So, and then when they discovered it, it was Yuki that discovered it, and again, I don't think he told her, but then you get to see his flashback when he left and came across Toru.
True.
Almost kind of hinting that, there could be a romance either between Yuki or Kyo with Toru, and there are reasons for it. Finally, we have episode 15, which is I Wouldn't Say That. So, in another vacation episode, Shigure decides to take Yuki, Kyo, Toru, and Hattori to the Soma's lakeside house for a short vacation. There, we get to have some nice bonding moments between Shigure and Hattori, and eventually Ayame joins them. Because we find out that these three are actually like really good friends from high school days. And we actually do find out that there's an alternative motive to coming out to the lakeside house this particular day. But a lot of this is centered around some weird anger or like bad vibe that's going on between Kyo, Toru, and Yuki, which ultimately is just something stupid. Like they aren't even the focus of this episode. It's kind of funny. The only reason they're the focus is because Shigure decides to troll Kyo into thinking that there's a bear named Jason out there. And that kind of goes into a conflict between Kyo and Yuki. The real kind of sub-story that happens in this episode is, if people remember, Kana Soma, who was the sweetheart of Hattori, turns out she found somebody after having her memories erased, and they actually are getting married that day. And so in order to not have Hattori be upset or depressed by it, Hattori got dragged by Shigure and Ayame to go to the lakeside house so that he wouldn't have to worry about it, and he'd be around friends to deal with all of this. So that I actually think that's kind of nice. So he wouldn't tear himself up inside.
Yeah, but that was weird about the whole bear thing, though. It's like, what?
Yeah, it like I said, when Toru, Kyo, and Yuki are supposed to be kind of the focus of an episode, the fact that they kind of got a side plot is kind of weird in this one. But yeah, that was the weird thing, is like they go out walking on the beach, and then because Shigure told a story about a wild bear named Jason, Kyo is constantly worried about meeting the psycho bear Jason. And even Yuki has to kind of look at him and go, Jason's not a bear, it's a character in a horror film. Because that was basically what was happening. But they resolve it, and Toru eventually is feeling better about it. So it's a nice little bonding episode between the three of them, as well as Hattori, Shigure, and Ayame. But the other added detail that we get with this one is that we actually also find out that the homeroom teacher of Yuki, Toru, and Kyo, Mayuko Shiraki, is also friends with Shigure, Hattori, and Ayame. She went to school with them. And we find that out because of Shigure, because Shigure likes to tease her too. Mm-hmm. So, fun fact, that was not in the original series. But overall, in these first 15 episodes, like it, dislike it, where are you at with Fruits Basket Season 1?
Oh, I liked it, you know.
Good.
Getting to know a lot of the characters.
Because I wish we could like nuke out the remaining episodes, but we have so much other stuff that's going to be happening in these later episodes. I don't know if we could do it, and I don't want to put out like a 2-hour podcast on this. So
we can do a 2-part.
What we'll do is we'll break this in half, and then we will record part 2, and that'll go up shortly after. And then I will go over season 2 and make sure that this won't happen again, because there will probably be events that we need to cover in that one. All of this leading up to our first covering of Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1 and Fruits Basket Season 3. So we hope you guys have enjoyed these first 15 episodes, our brief look back into those episodes to be able to give our thoughts on them. We hope you guys will join us for the next one, and until then, we will see you guys next time.